As learners age, they progress through developmental stages that affect their readiness to learn. These stages are characterized by physical, cognitive, and psychosocial aspects. This presentation will describe Piaget's theory of cognitive development, identify the developmental stages of learners, and recommend specific teaching strategies that target each stage of life. Jean Piaget described children's cognitive development as involving three different types of knowledge: physical knowledge, objects in the world that can be learned about through the senses, touch, smell, taste, etc. Logical mathematical knowledge, which is more of an abstract knowledge concerned with actions on objects. And social knowledge, the actions, interactions, and culture of people. Piaget recognized that children exhibit common characteristics as they develop, and identified 4 stages of cognitive development. Though children pass through the stages in order, they vary in age for when they reach each stage. Babies begin their learning journey at the sensory motor stage. They learn about the world through play and handling, feeling, and yes, tasting objects. Repetition is great at this stage, and providing opportunities for babies to imitate and stimulate their senses is recommended. Around age 2 or so, a young child may progress to the pre-operational stage, which is evident by using symbols and language during play. Dolls and puppets can be effective ways to present information to children at this stage, and simple drawings and stories can help make the information more memorable for these learners. Around 7 years old, children may mature to the concrete operational stage, wherein they can solve many kinds of problems and provide logical arguments for some of their decisions. Analogies can be used with children at this stage, and group activities and active involvement can be particularly effective. As children enter adolescence, they may develop to the formal operational stage, though some speculate that many people never reach this stage of cognitive development. At this stage, individuals are able to think hypothetically and can be more empathetic to others around them. Information that is personalized for the learner and room for negotiation of content and learning approaches will likely be welcomed. Learning doesn't stop once we reach adulthood. Andragogy, the study of adult learning, provides some insights into understandings where adults are cognitively and how to effectively motivate them and help them achieve their goals. Piaget generally classified adult learners at the formal operations phase, and I am going to briefly explain each phase of adult learning and how we can connect better with adult learners and help them achieve their learning goals. Young adults often appreciate being able to work at their own pace and be self-directed. Having a problem-centered focus can also help to provide complex, subject-integrated, real-world experiences into the classroom. As adults reach 40, they can sometimes re-examine their goals and values and achievements and success. They may seek out information that addresses problems and issues in their own lives and try to improve areas of their lives that are less than satisfactory. Around 65 and beyond, older adults can be quite diverse in their skills and abilities. They may be experiencing some physical changes in their bodies that reduce their senses, such as hearing and vision, and may find abstract thoughts increasingly more challenging. Visual aids that accompany spoken instructions are often very effective with older adults. Providing ample breaks with food and short instructional sessions can allow students to decrease fatigue and increase energy levels for study. Older adults may also appreciate positive stories and concepts and slower, distinct speech. As individuals advance from one developmental stage to the next, they use three mechanisms to make meaning and retain information. If you watched the video introduction to schema theory, these three mechanisms should sound familiar: assimilation, accommodation, and equilibration. Children assimilate new objects or activities into pre-existing schemes of knowledge. Accommodation happens when these pre-existing schemes have to be modified in order to fit in new information. As children become aware of deficits in their thinking, they may equilibrate to resolve these issues. Equilibration involves both assimilation and accommodation, and it happens when children recognize some of their cognitive shortcomings and then progress to the next developmental stage. My course lacks interactivity and it has no point. I assumed the software would take care of that. As educators and designers of instruction, we can incorporate what we know about learner development to meet learners where they are and build learning activities around the developmental readiness of our learners. While it would be great to have a software that could do this for us, it really is up to us as instructors and curriculum developers to be mindful of learner cognitive development issues and incorporate appropriate strategies based on learner characteristics. There are some key differences between child learners and adult learners. In general, adults tend to be more self-directed than child learners, and they draw from the things they have learned through experience over the years. Adults build relationships, make connections, and seek to find patterns and meaning in what they are learning. Here are 12 key ideas for designing effective instruction geared toward adult learners. 1. Relate the material being taught to an immediate need, problem, or deficit. For instance, adults may reach out to healthcare professionals to learn how they can keep a healthy status and minimize effects of stress and chronic illnesses. This is an opportune time to provide the information they need to address these concerns. 2. Design learning experiences so that the learners can volunteer and self-initiate. 3. Center instructional materials on people and problems. 4. Structure learning activities so that learners can be self-directed and self-controlled. Written patient materials and computer-based instruction enable adult learners to self-pace their learning independently. 5. Come alongside learners as facilitator to serve as a resource and guide as needed. 6. Narrow the breadth of instructional content to mainly provide information and assignments that are pertinent to the learners. 7. Connect new information to learners' past experiences, helping to clarify and expand their prior understandings. As Susan Bastable and colleagues recommend, in working with older adults, reminiscing is a beneficial approach to use to establish a therapeutic relationship. Memories can be quite powerful. Talking with older persons about their experiences, marriage, children, grandchildren, jobs, community involvement, and the like, can be very stimulating. Furthermore, their answers will give the health professional insight into their humanness, their abilities, and their concerns. 8. Provide a challenging educational environment without threatening the learner's self-concepts. One way to do this is through a one-to-one instructional approach. For older adults, this format of instruction provides a non-threatening environment for older adults in which to meet their individual needs and goals. 9. Engage learners to actively participate in learning activities and even presentations of content. Demonstrations, games, and role-playing activities can be used, but be sure to provide adequate instructions on how to operate any needed technologies. 10. Coordinate opportunities for group-based learning. Groups allow adult learners to interact with others who may be in similar situations, such as preparing for childbirth. Group-based learning allows adult learners to build relationships and draw support from fellow learners. 11. Add variety to the learning activities by changing up the types and formats frequently. And 12. Enable learners to apply their learning in their own lives and practices and provide timely, specific feedback that can encourage them and guide them to further improve. Because adults have responsibilities with work, family, and civic commitments, they are often dividing their time, energy, and focus among all of these areas in addition to their learning. Thus, the more targeted, practical, relatable, and approachable the instructional experience is, the better. Going back to our initial inquiry into Piaget's theory of cognitive development, it comes down to this. There are 3 valuable instructional applications based on Piagetian-based classrooms that can be applied to the teaching of learners from childhood through adulthood. 1. The learning environment should support the activity of the learner. Piaget recognized the importance of engaging learners with hands-on activities that foster experimentation, manipulation, exploration, and questioning. For instance, being able to play with materials allows child learners to discover the features of the materials and generate understandings about how they work, what they are made of, and how they interact with other objects. Adult learners, too, can benefit from opportunities to work with physical materials, but more importantly, they can benefit from active learning approaches that help them to focus, relate new experiences with prior ones, and see relationships among concepts. 2. Learners' interactions with their peers are an important source of cognitive development. One characteristic of pre-operational children is their egocentrism, and Piaget saw that peer teaching and interactions were healthy ways to help children expand their thinking beyond themselves. Group interactions are also beneficial for adult learners for the interpersonal relationships that they offer, as well as the support given and received through being a part of a learning community. 3. Adopt instructional strategies that make learners aware of conflicts and inconsistencies in their thinking. Stemming from Piaget's notion of equilibration, helping learners identify incomplete or faulty thinking will enable them to assimilate new information into their existing cognitive structures and adjust, that is, accommodate, those structures to be able to move to the next developmental stage. With adults, a Socratic dialogue approach can be used to help learners make explicit their rationale and logic through questioning and appropriate supportive feedback by the instructor. When using this approach, though, keep in mind the importance of maintaining a low threat to self learning environment in which learners will be able to be vulnerable in exposing their misconceptions so that they can receive constructive feedback to improve and develop cognitively. These three Piagetian-based instructional recommendations really are good practices for learners at all stages of development. So, as you develop your instructional experiences, take into account learner cognitive development and consider incorporating into your course or instructional program these recommendations and the many teaching strategies targeted for specific stages of development that were described in this presentation.